Thanks for checking out Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. Here are your hosts, Andrew Hofer and Tom Sigel.
Well, welcome to everybody. The first ever Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA podcast. I'm Tom Sigel. I am a field ambassador here with Three Rivers FCA, and I'm joined by our area director, Andrew Hofer. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, how are we doing today?
We're giving it a shot. We have a special guest on here in a couple minutes, but just wanted to welcome everybody. We think that there is an opportunity here with this podcast that we're going to be able to get some athletes and coaches from not only our area, but with connections around the country in the Midwest on maybe once or twice a week to share with our guests and help share what's going on with FCA and share stories and experiences. So as our area director, kind of turn it over to you and just talk about kind of our area and what we're trying to do here with FCA.
Yeah, we're really excited to be able to do this because I know podcasting is becoming a really popular form of communication. So I don't know about you, but when I'm driving down the road, I don't listen to the radio anymore, right? So I listen to podcasts or pretty frequently. So we're hoping to be able to use this as a tool to communicate with our coaches, to communicate with the local communities about what's happening within FCA, and really just to talk about the aspect of faith in sport, which is what FCA, it is as a ministry.
Mm-hmm.
It's bringing that faith element into sport, and with the whole goal of seeing coaches and athletes come into a relationship with Jesus Christ and his church. And so for us, you and I, we serve in the Three Rivers area, which is 10 counties. And I know we've talked about it off air, but I don't think a lot of people know this. It's 114 different schools in our area, more than 10,000 just high school students alone, more than 4,000 coaches alone. So it's just a crazy amount. And that's not even including the people that are in the Peoria area, the Rockford area, and on the Iowa side. That's just our local little Illinois Quad Cities area. So it's a vast amount of students, a vast amount of coaches. And we know that, God's using this ministry as a way for us to get our foot in the door to be able to engage not only relationally, but spiritually with those coaches and students.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, the media opportunities out there now, and our first guest that we'll have on definitely will probably speak to that, the connection between ministry and media. And so we're excited to venture out and bring some episodes that will hopefully impact the area and students and athletes and coaches, as well as anybody else that are guests on as we go down this road. So we will take a quick break here, and then we will be bringing on our first ever guest, Dan Pearson. Welcome into our first ever guest here on Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA, and that is our special guest, Dan Pearson. So, Dan, let you kind of introduce yourself with your role in FCA, and kind of turn it over a little bit to your history and how you got involved.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here on the debut. I'm excited about that. I know it's been seamless and flawless with the technology and stuff. So great job. Yeah. So for me, I've been on staff for 14 years, FCA staff, and I started as an area rep. And after about 9 months, I became a director, what was called an area director, like Andrew. And then probably for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been what's called a multi-area director. So I have the pleasure of being involved in 3 different areas, in Three Rivers, which is people here would say the Illinois Quad Cities, and just all the way up and down the river, and then the Rockford area and Peoria. So in Three Rivers, there's 10 counties, just to kind of give you perspective. And for me, I came out of broadcasting. I was in a sports anchor and reporter for 29 years, and I started in Peoria, where I went to school. I went to Bradley, home of the Braves, land of the free. And I'd stay there for a couple 3 years, went to Springfield, a little over a year, then came here thinking, I'll stay here for 2 or 3 years, on my way to ESPN, right? So just had a wonderful career in TV. Got to meet the 2 top coaches I've ever known are Andrew and Tom themselves too. So and that really speaks to me as like the
you're too kind.
But that kind of, honestly, that's to me why I was prompted to reach out to both you guys, because I knew you and had good relationships with you through sport. And as we know, FCA celebrates the coach. We think they're the most influential person in America. And that not just with players, it happened for me, as a broadcaster, even too, because I was around coaches every day of my working life, and I continue to do that.
You kind of mentioned the coaches being the most influential people in America. Why do you think that is the case? Because I think many times coaches are underappreciated, especially within small communities.
Yeah, I mean, you create your own support system. That's the automatic of what a team is, and you spend time together, man. We see when the clock's ticking, but the rest of the week, there's so much good going on, and it can be good or bad. But the relationship building and those coaches who we would call three-dimensional coaches to find the jersey behind the heart. That's the piece that creates influence, I would say, and it's just because you're spending time together. As seasons go on, you've been through the battles together, the joys and the ups and downs and stuff, and you're living life together. I think that fits in to what like our E3 engage, equip, empower is the piece that, yeah, we want to share God's good gospel, but we want to share our lives together because we have become so fond of you, so fond of one another.
So, well, Andrew and I, like you mentioned, we were both in coaching, and for me personally, didn't have FCA in high school at Rock Falls, and when I coached at Rock Falls, we did athletes committed to excellence, but it was not faith based. I know that there's some good things going on at Rock Falls now with their school and FCA, but the coaches huddle that I want to talk about later too, kind of really got me involved and see it grow. And Andrew has obviously changed the course of his career coming out of coaching as well.
Yeah.
I think for the importance of FCA.
Yeah, I mean it's not necessarily a path I envisioned, but that's something that God envisioned, and I appreciate Dan recruiting me over the years. I didn't even know it, but Dan was recruiting me for how many years, Dan? More than 10. More than
Oh
10.
yeah, easily. Yeah.
So it's definitely changed the course of my life, but in a way that we're able to use the impact that God has had in our own personal lives to use that light to reflect to our local schools and communities with all the coaches and athletes that we work with.
Yeah, and I think the experience factor is high. I just think you guys are very effective because those coaches know, that you've been down the road. So I always wonder sometimes that we take care in our hiring. Will a 22-year-old recent college grad have the ear of a 50-year-old coach? Versus what you guys bring to the table too. So experience is important, and obviously the gospel and just the know-how. The first dimension is the X's and O's, being in shape, those kind of things too. And then, I think it does feed into what you guys brought to your table. You guys recognized, I would say early in your careers, in my observation is that finding the heart and getting involved in lives beyond practice and games too. And that includes their families, those athletes' families too.
Can you tell us what you've seen, like when you've seen a coach who's been impacted through Christ? How have you seen that impact be then transformed onto the teams and the way that they coach over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you. We hear the word culture a lot, and I've had a bird's eye view of that on sidelines and things like that. Like the things you hear that are good or bad, and I heard a team very recently, their coaches asked, "What do we need to change?" And like, wow, a coach actually asking an athlete, and one of them was, "Stop yelling at us." You So it took courage to say that. And so the communication piece, and I think that has definitely changed since I started my career. That yes, the coach is an authoritative figure, but he or she is also available for discussion, more of a back and forth. And we talk about, have kids changed? Probably not, but the culture, social media, things like that has. So coaches probably have a lot more to manage, but I think that's an opportunity to change your team because you understand what their worlds are like a little bit more, and that's almost a requirement now, as a coach, that the relational piece has to be super strong. And I don't care if it's a team of 12 basketball players or 72 football players. You've got to take action. And I see that, and I see great success stories that way. And it's exciting to see coaches play and win that way, and where, you know, even after a loss, the relationship doesn't change. That's what I see when your best is enough, and the winning and losing piece that's a bonus. And the intrinsic part of it is I want to compete, I want to have fun, and I want to honor my teammates and my coaches too. So that's when I think sports is most fulfilling, because you are going to hang up the shoulder pads, and that's what I love it when coaches say, "Hey, how's the season going? I'll let you know in 25 years." What's how my
Mhm.
guys or my girls are leading their families and serving in communities too.
Yeah, and I think that, you mentioned that don't yell at us as much. I mean, I think that there is the necessity for the discipline, the accountability as parents and as coaches, as teachers. Um, and I think that, that doesn't get pushed to the side.
Yeah. Oh no.
But like you said, with the relationships that, hey, we lost, or you messed up, and there were consequences, or whatever the case may be, that we still love you, and that there's a strong
Yeah.
relationship that you've built through that. And it's not always, hey, we're friends and we're gonna hold hands and walk down the street all the time either. And like you said, that foundation has been built previously before you get in those situations.
Yeah, and that's you guys remember what it was being an athlete. It's like you will, run through a wall for somebody because of your coach. If coaches, they just to fully understand that an athlete might do more for you under your authority than they're under their parents. There's something about the coach to athlete relationship, and I don't know, is it playing time? I don't know, maybe a little bit, but being part of a team, being part of a group that's single-minded in what they want to do. They want to be a good football player. They want to be a good basketball or baseball or soccer, whatever it might be. But that's what is centered in our why, and that's why when it is the cross of Jesus, it kind of takes away the stress and the tension that might come with coach to player, player to coach, vice versa.
Mhm.
Changing gears a little bit, and this isn't a question that we've necessarily touched base on, but it's something that you're seeing more and more come up within sports now, is athletes of faith being bold and more open about their faith. And I think the same goes for coaches too. As you've been in FCA and you've been in sports ministry, why do you think coaches and athletes now are opening up more about it and being more transparent about their faith and bold in what they're saying, especially when you get to the larger levels with the media coverage that they have?
Yeah, I think it's almost become a matter of fact that, well, of course, this is a factor in my life. And maybe kids are a little bit more expressive about it, or maybe we're hearing it more because the media is allowing it more to be, it's what they use. And with live TV, live interviews, and you didn't see that as much a million years ago, that you can't stop it. You can only hope to contain it. You can't stop what's happening live. And like I used to get in discussions with people, like if it was a taped interview or like a newspaper interview, quotes and stuff. Well, I was standing right next to that kid when he said, thank the Lord that he gave me the strength to be able to compete like this. Not everybody has it. They don't use that soundbite. They don't use that quote, and the back and forth would go, well, my job isn't to help somebody present the gospel. But if that's a factor in their life, come on, don't be afraid to use it. And so that's what I love hearing some of those post game interviews and stuff too, that they're very vocal with their witness. And I think, and I'm seeing, I mean, this is big, broad picture, that this generation, 15 to 25, I think there's revival, and it's certainly spilled into the sports world. And maybe that those live reporters, and I go out of my mind when they interview a coach during the game. I don't like that so much, just they're in the middle. middle of a game. But it seems like the reporters on the sidelines after games, especially, is like, okay, get that 20 seconds in, and then they go on. So I think it's becoming more accepted that way. Like it's not taboo or anything from a media perspective. And that's what I've counted on as part of my vision when I joined FCA, is to combine media with ministry, because I've seen the power of that forever. And, a million years ago when I started, it's like there was no social media, and it was a big deal when the TV station showed up and things like that. And now it's so accessible, and kids are comfortable in front of cameras and in front of phones, obviously. So so I know I think we're in a good spot in that way, that people, kids, athletes, coaches are more expressive that way. And they know, I don't know, both of you guys, maybe that gives peace of mind knowing what I say is actually going to be broadcast. It might have driven you crazy when they'd cut out sound bites. Well, this was the most important part of the game. Why didn't he use that quote?
Well, and I think that's the connection, like you said, not but with the sports, but the media and the ministry, that we're giving a shot with the podcast to be able to reach out and share stories and the vision. So, what's happening with not only the Three Rivers area but Northwest Illinois FCA that you've seen recently, and maybe also touch on what the vision is, and maybe there's some of those people that wonder if there's ways to get involved.
Yeah, there's one way especially, and we're hiring. That's one of the biggies right now, and so I'm really thankful to God that we have three wonderful area directors in each area. And Andrew's one of those, and so that's a big piece for me. Like my job is to love on those guys. I'm their direct reports, and then the big deal is our vision-based staffing plan, and we're talking for us. It'll be close to, if to be fully staffed whenever that comes, it'd be pushing 70 people probably, a total in all three areas, so that's our drive, is to cover, not stretch anymore. So to find the right people, the people that align with the gospel and really believe the truth of God's word, those kind of things. So I think that's what's going to help FCA flourish anymore. Because like when I came on, I was gung ho with the camera and stuff like that as an area rep, and I think we went from like 27 to 100 huddles. And it's like, wow, that sounds great, but we couldn't cover them. We had to stretch, and some of them that were not those huddles of excellence. And so that's the piece where we can start huddles and things like that, but we got to be able to serve them and love on them through staff and volunteers too. So that's my main focus, is like my boss would tell me, is staff, donors, and boards. And so God's moving that way. So I'm very thankful for that, and we're all very driven to make that happen.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned staff too, and that when we talk about those numbers, we've talked about it. Like that seems staggering, but the amount of students and coaches within our region alone, I mean, there's over 10,000 high school students just in the Three Rivers area, and so thousands and thousands more in the rest of the Northwest Illinois region. So, yeah, it's something that we want to be able to pour into as many students and coaches as possible. And you're right, to do it well, it's going to take more. It's more people are going to need to step up and volunteer and serve and come on in full capacity too. And it's just, it's something that we can't do on our own, but need the Lord's provision for. But it's a big vision, but one that only that He can do.
Yeah, and I think like one of the great options is what Tom's doing. He's what's called an ambassador. It's a limited number of hours per week. It's based on what the IRS allows, and it's to find those experienced people out there, men and women, who would like to serve a community, that it wouldn't be overwhelming, anything like. And Tom is, we've really his focus is on coaches. Normally it'd say, well, I live in Morrison or whatever too. I'd love to be, serving the coaches and athletes at the middle school, high school, even the grade schools there. So there's a way to really contain that into what could fit into the lifestyle of somebody who maybe is recently retired and loves sports, loves the Lord, and just has that amount of time to be able to make a difference. And like when you are serving, it's like even for my staff is that I don't want you going to every huddle. I want you to go to huddles time to time and make sure they're going well. But I want you to go to office hours of coaches and show up at a practice. Let them know ahead of time you're coming. But just to serve coaches in really healthy ways that make their lives better. And like Tom always makes a great point, like with the Bible study. Why don't I wait till after the season? Then I'll join the Bible study. And he's like, actually, it's probably best when the season's going on
It
because
was
you're
for
around.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, speak to that, Tom, that you're with coaches going through the same thing you are at that time. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean the support, the tough times, they're not quite as frequent or stressful during the off season as they are during the season, and it was just making that time. And once I did, boy, that connection and that support and the ability to share once a week was huge. So
I think coaching can be somewhat isolating at times because you put the pressure of a school or a community on your back a little bit. But most of the time, unfairly. Like we just coaches are kind of grinders. That's just how we do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you're so locked in with your team, and you got all these eyes on you that it can definitely be isolating.
hmm and Andrew, we've also had a couple other field ambassadors have come on board recently as well. As you said, Dan, focusing on kind of their hometown and their area.
Yeah, with Craig Johnson in the Bureau County area, again, retired coach path there. Lots of connections in Bureau County, and especially with coaches. And then Jeff Bernhardt in the Orion area, helping out with Orion, Sherrard, and Cambridge, and again, another coach in the soccer and golf world. And those guys who have had that coaching experience have been in the fight and have also been bold in their faith at the same time. They're able to come alongside us and walk with different coaches and students of those communities.
Yeah, and I think like our vision. There's a reason why coaches are mentioned before athletes. You know, isn't athletes those are the ones you should be serving first, right? Actually, like we mentioned before, because the coaches are the influencers. They're the boots on the ground, and that's where we give the ministry away to them, and then they can be the influencer. And if you're an athlete and you see your coach, the person you listen to every single day, you see him in the hallways or whatever, and you see them being transformed. So I think I want that, and like when it definitely impacts the team, then it trickles down into the players, and then guess what? It trickles into the hallways too.
Yeah.
So any closing thoughts? Getting to be our inaugural guest here, but very excited to have you as well, to share with us and the guests as far as FCA and the vision.
Yeah, I'm just very excited about this. This is it. This podcasting now is eventually, you might see the 6 and 10 o'clock news go away because of what the internet has become. And this is just a great way for content that's kind of long form speaking, those kind of things. I love storytelling still. Don't get me wrong. I love doing stories, and it's still very effective and important. But I just see, I encourage coaches and athletes when these guys reach out to you, jump on, and tell your story. Perhaps this is a way that's going to affect people's view of eternity. But I know, like the majority of the stories that I do are not what I call Jesus-y. They're just foot in the door, getting to know coaches, getting to know athletes that way, and then hopefully, that will drive them to the cross at some point too. So this is a great vehicle to do that. And I just think of the thousands of kids and coaches. We had an exercise one time as staff. It's like, let's see who knows the most coaches. It's like, well, I'm going to win that one, because I've done probably 10,000 interviews. And then they defined it as, oh, we mean that you've shared the gospel with. That's what an engaging relationship is, staff to coach or staff to athlete. That, what kind of depth has there really been? So that's what I'm hoping this turns into, that it's opening up doors with relationships with you guys too, that maybe somebody will say, oh, an ambassador, I could do that. So let's talk. Let's take it beyond just the contained what the podcast is, and just say, what, let's meet outside of this too. So you guys are going to do great. The relationship piece is going to be a really big deal. You've got the ear of a lot of coaches in the area. And so that's my encouragement to anybody listening, that, if you've got maybe an idea for some content or someone to interview too, you guys will be receptive to that, I'm sure, right?
Well, we'll have a few closing comments, but Dan, we thank you very much for coming on and making this a successful venture for us, and for your support and everything you've done in the area as
Yep.
well.
Thank you, Dan.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
All right. Take care. Okay. Well, thanks again to Dan Pearson. He's been a tremendous support and influence on us, as well as so many in the area. We're excited to continue to run with Inside the Huddle. And I know it's not a very original title with a number of them out there, but the huddle is an important term in athletics, obviously, but also in FCA.
Yeah, we were joking off air that it sounds a little bit cliche, and it is, but the term huddle means something. So within sports, why do teams get into a huddle? It's to collaborate, communicate, and make sure that everyone's on the same page and moving forward together as a team. And it's a special term for us because our small groups that meet within schools and within sports teams and even within the group of coaches are huddles where we get together to be able to pour into each other spiritually. And so it's definitely a special term for us. And so we're using this platform as a way for us to get together with different coaches and local community members to be able to share what's going on and communicate how they can help and what's going on within FCA in the area.
Yes. And we want people to be inside the huddle, because I think on our teams too, we talk about inner circle, and there's outside the huddle, which isn't always the greatest influence, but inside the huddle is where we want you to be. We also, I mentioned earlier about our coaches huddle that I've been a part of for over 20 years now. And so was honored to be able to kind of take the lead on that with that opportunity when I got involved. We meet Thursday mornings, and we've really been able to grow it with the use of Zoom. And so we have coaches from outside there. We actually have a coach from Pontiac, Illinois, who jumps on. That he was invited by one of our regulars, Jim Sanders. And Thursday mornings at 6:30, we do have for people who are local can meet for breakfast. And so you'd be able to email me if you're interested. Just been a tremendous impact, like we talked about during the episode. With support and growing and understanding. I know how many coaches who've been on say, I wish we would have had this when I started coaching, the influence it could have had and made an impact. And I feel the same way, different ways that I think I could have done better. And so that's an opportunity. We call it our coaches huddle. So again, a phrase that gets used a lot. And then last little announcement, we have a coaches appreciation dinner Sunday, November 16th. At TPC Deer Run. This will be our fourth year of doing it, and it's for coaches and spouses. It's a treat on us, a night out. That we have our Alicia Williams, the Bradley women's volleyball coach, is our keynote speaker. It's a nice evening out, and so reach out to us, our SVP, Sunday, November 16th. We have that coming up, which is a great outreach to support coaches and the coaches' spouses, which we all know in this business deserve a special recognition for all that they go through.
Yeah, I think that should probably be the topic of an episode sometime. We should probably have a couple coaches' spouses on, because we talked about coaching being isolating. Sometimes sitting up in the crowd too, while your husband or your spouse in general is coaching, can be challenging. So at least that's what my wife tells me. So,
yeah. So and we've kicked around topics. We do have a long list of guests that we're looking at, but we have a way for you to offer up some questions or topics.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions or topics that you'd like us to discuss as a part of the podcast, we'd love to hear from you guys. We are, again, trying to be as relational as possible. We want to hear what's going on within the coaching world. We've been connected within the coaching world for a long time, but things change, things evolve, and we want to hear topics that you guys may have for discussion. So But it's been a great first episode, and I appreciate all of you out there and looking forward to connecting with you down the road. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for watching this episode of Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. If you have ideas for content or interview suggestions, just reach out to Tom or Andrew. Thanks again for checking out Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA.